You're listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
File access granted.
Welcome, all you believers, idealists, skeptics, and all those questioning the world around them. I'm Ty.
And I'm Bailey.
And this is Cult Talk Conspiracy. Today, we got a spicy one.
Yes.
We're talking porn.
Oh, boy.
Talking about porn on Cult Talk Conspiracy.
I feel like you and Michael planned this for me. Like, we're going to get her to talk about some raunchy things.
Yeah, Bailey is a prude, and she's very uncomfortable with this kind of stuff.
You're gonna
claiming to be a pagan. I think you guys supposed to be like fucking heathens. But
I'm just very conservative.
Oh,
Very conservative.
That explains a lot.
It does.
Well, today we're talking about porn, and this goes in a entirely different route than I kind of originally intended. It's a spicy one. I've decided my next episode I'm going to do a nice, fun one because I was hoping this would be a fun one, but it turned out to be a lot more spicier than I expected. So, and I did Project Bluebeam, which talked about all the same shit this does. So I want to do for my next one something nice and fun and simple.
Every time we talk about Project Bluebeam, all I can think about is Satellite Jesus. That's all I can think about. If you haven't listened to Project Bluebeam and you're like, what in the crap is Satellite Jesus? Go listen to the Project Bluebeam and then come back.
Maybe one day you'll find out when they finally hit the power button on that technology they have. When they fire it up.
I know. I can't. Bless the day.
Bless it. But yeah, the holidays are finally over, thankfully. We just came off of Bailey talking about dimensions and part 1 of her series she's doing. So
excited.
I figured I'm going to go ahead and kind of tap into everyone's primal urges, and we'll talk about pornography.
I'm so uncomfortable.
Never did I think he's going to be covering this on Cult Talk Conspiracy.
Nope.
But it is pretty interesting.
Nope. I just thought we were going to have a show dedicated to it.
Yeah. Yeah, one day.
Actually, one day it's coming. One day. But I've been really excited and nervous for this pretty much all day. I don't know what to expect. I'm going in blind. Like,
you're not doing any research on your work computer.
You're like, oh, yeah, it's fine. Just go and cold. It'll be all right. Like, okay.
You might end up on some sites you don't want to be on.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm ready.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's jump into file 011. Here's our second episode of 2023 for Cult Talk Conspiracy. Let's go to unseal this file. Porn! Bailey, what do you think the porn conspiracy is going to be about? What do
I think it's going to be about? I think it's going to be really consistent of a lucrative market.
Yeah, can be. Yeah, it's a very lucrative market, actually. Porn is a pretty good industry.
Yeah.
What's your favorite? What's your favorite porn?
You guys can't see it, but like I literally just shot him like a mother's look. I'm like, why are you asking me that? So he's hiding his face from me right now.
What opportunity we got for that?
I don't have a favorite porn, Ty. What's yours?
Oh, okay. The gay stuff usually.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's predictable.
So I figure we start this episode off. Let's give a little brief history on porn because it's pretty interesting. So the history of pornography can be traced as far back as the Paleolithic era, where cave drawings of genitalia can be found. German archaeologists recently discovered an over 7,000-year-old drawing of a male figure bending over a female figure in a sexual manner. That is believed to be one of the oldest depictions of porn. So 7,000 years ago.
I feel like that was a guy drawing a diagram for his friends. Like, this is what I did to her. Right here. This is how.
Now, throughout history, many images have depicted sexually suggestive scenes. Every culture, I mean, you can look at any culture and there's some form of sexual illustrations that can be considered pornographic. On pyramid walls in Egypt, pottery in Rome and Greece, and tons of paintings throughout Asia. Asia very famously has their product of the Kama Sutra came out of India, which is kind of the advanced guide for sex. If you ever want to look into that. Now, many of these depictions were rooted in religious beliefs, but almost every culture has some form of erotic artwork tied to their culture. Porn really began to become porn during the Age of Enlightenment in Europe during the 17th and 18th century. This is a period where people really began to value personal happiness and the pursuit of knowledge. During this time, several socially revolutionary ideals entered the mainstream, such as the separation of church and state.
You mean like porn was a normal, like everyday thing until the church got involved?
Nope. Yep. Church wasn't too happy about it.
No.
Prior to this, there were attempts at printing provocative imagery. So, as people kind of, people were, like porn. It's something that people have always been drawn to. So, there were several attempts at printing provocative imagery, and these were met with scandal by the Catholic Church. Catholic Church did not want porn being spread around Europe. Now, famous Italian artist Marcantonio Raimondi published an illustrated book depicting sexual positions.
Oh.
As a result, Pope Clement VII ordered all copies be destroyed, and Marcantonio was imprisoned.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were not playing around. They did not want this porn to be, littering the streets of Europe.
Did he ever get out?
I don't know. I didn't read into much.
Oh, okay.
I imagine he did. I don't think they gave him like a death sentence, but I think he got in prison. So
what if you died in prison from printing porn? Oh,
different time. Now, at the height of the Enlightenment period, free thinkers began to use depictions of pornography as subversive satire against the Catholic Church. So you can look back in history and you'll find around this time a lot of kind of like political statements, and porn is used to depict that because it would, of course, inflame the church. That's a good way to get their attention because, obviously they didn't want porn to be, in Europe, so they would use that same stuff to kind of infuriate them and get their point across. The tactic would continue into the 20th century, or it also be used during the French Revolution. And they would, of course, target Marie Antoinette. She was a very popular target. People would depict her in orgies or being sodomized and things like that just because she was kind of a bitch. So what better way to give her what for than,
there is no actual proof saying that she actually said let them eat cake, by the way.
I don't think so, no.
There's no actual proof, which I quoted that a lot as a little bratty kid. So when I heard there was no proof, I was like, oh. Of course, like doing it not knowing the context.
Is it a Mandela? There was never a Marie Antoinette cake like company, was there? That's like not a thing, right? That was never a thing.
I don't recall.
For some reason, I remember there being, but I think I might be thinking Marie Calendar.
That was my first thought was Marie Calendar.
For some reason, I remember it being a Marie Antoinette. That'd be kind of a douchey cake factory, I guess, a cake company, I guess. Because
I would expect the best cakes out of the.
You expect the best out of it?
I would expect the best.
No.
I mean, if you're gonna attach a name like Marie Antoinette, I expect the very best.
It makes sense because she is famous for saying you let them eat cake. Well, eat this cake, I guess.
Very
let them eat this cake. Yeah.
Yes, this one.
Be interesting. I wonder if there is a company that's done that. Now, as the world progressed and technology advanced, pornography would also evolve. Now, this is a something we see throughout history. You'll commonly see that for whatever your thoughts on porn are, they are very influential in the advancement of like media technology. This was saw in the 80s with the VCR and the beta. There was the beta player and the VCR. VHS, the VCR, won that war because porn backed the VCR. Porn, it was a cheaper, item to use was the VCR, so porn distributed their stuff on VCR. And you would see this again in the early 2000s with Blu-ray and HD DVD. HD DVD came out, and by all accounts, HD DVD is the superior media. If you've ever seen an HD DVD, it's a far better picture and sound, but it was cheaper to produce Blu-rays. So porn, obviously backed Blu-ray because they want to get their stuff out, mass quantities quicker and cheaper. So Blu-ray actually beat HD DVD, not because of superiority, but because porn backed it.
Yeah.
So you'll see that a lot through history where porn is like very influential over the way technology kind of takes the route it takes.
I've always found that very interesting as well, because it literally is, because I mean it's something you watch, it's something you see and you consume, so it literally predicts where are people going to be getting their next form of content. So I've always found that very interesting, because I've found that very, very interesting.
It's super interesting when you think of porn as being this kind of shunned thing. It's people don't want it around, but it's makes so much money. It's who is consuming all this content, and for it to literally pave the way for technology, the way technological advancements go. People are consuming this content. It's just very interesting. So in the 1840s. We saw the very first pornographic photos produced. So they developed a cheap way to take photos and also make copies of these photos. So one of the very first, mediums to dive into that is porn. They're taking pictures of a naked lady, they produce it and distribute it. The later 1800s introduced the first pornographic magazines. Now, these were highly illegal, but they were so sought after, they had no choice but to be mass produced.
Oh my God.
They're illegal. They're not supposed to be there. There's every household has them or something. You know what I mean? They were highly sought after by some of the most powerful people in Europe at this time. So the same people probably making the laws to ban them are the ones, seeking them out. It's pretty interesting.
That kind of reminds me of Prohibition. Not gonna lie. Because there were a bunch of politicians just had cellars full of alcohol and whatnot.
Of course.
European politicians have got basements full of porno magazines.
Absolutely. It was a lot like that, where all these higher, big aristocrats and stuff were, demonizing porn, but yet, trying to get their hands on the latest porn magazine. I think it was called Pearl is what it was called. The very first one was called Pearl. The Pearl magazine.
Oh, that makes good on that. This is going to be a side note. Good on them if they're this clever, but I don't know if they were. So when Kim Kardashian posed for Playboy, I don't like Kim Kardashian. I just know this fact. Posed for Playboy, she was actually in a string of pearls. And it was Kim Kardashian's first ever Playboy shoot. And then the pearl, I don't know, that just clicked for my head. If that was a tribute to the first ever porno, that would be interesting. Though I think they're that.
I feel I don't know if it would be, but I bet, because I think the pearls are kind of just a sexualized thing anyway.
Yeah.
I feel pearls are kind of the sexual thing where, how they're found, how they're harvested.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that.
It's gorgeous how the whole process is gorgeous. Plus, oysters have had vaginal references made to them and whatnot.
You ever heard of a pearl necklace?
Yes.
That's what it's for.
I had to go back to my high school days for that. Not by experience, but
okay. Clarify.
I was told what these were.
Now, the first pornographic films were created almost immediately after the invention of motion pictures in the 1800s. So pretty much soon as the ability came to shoot video porn, they were on it. I believe Thomas Edison actually produced a pornographic film, or a film that was considered pornographic. It was it was a video of a woman, I believe, blowing a kiss, I think she was blowing a kiss. And that was considered to be pornographic, so that got banned.
Oh, wow.
A lot of early video stuff was you could tell they did not know how to take this new medium, because there was a lot of things being classified as porn, even though they weren't they were actually pornographic. So
it's like stepped in today's time, guys. Like, just come on
yeah,
this way.
yeah. Now today, porn is more easily accessible than ever. There's free websites, then you also have like independent creators like OnlyFans and things like that. I mean, you can go on Twitter and see all the porn you want for free just by scrolling on the feed. So it's estimated that porn industry makes between $6 to $15 billion a year. It's a pretty wide range.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and it's really hard to like say. It's really hard to like knock down or to like kind of centralize that, because I'm sure there's a lot of porn that isn't really accounted for. A lot of things that are being distributed and stuff that doesn't get accounted for. So,
yeah.
Now, porn has been a part of the human culture since pretty much the beginning of time. 7,000 years ago is when the oldest piece of pornography we found. It's considered to be some people consider it to be an art form, just kind of like depiction of man's most primal urges, and other people consider it to be disgusting evil smut. So what are your thoughts on porn, Bailey? What are your thoughts on porn as a whole?
Listen, as long as both parties are consensual, are adults, know what they're consenting to and understand what they're consenting to, and you're not hurting anybody involved or not involved, do whatever makes you happy, man. Like, I don't
same.
Listen, if you want a Great American Challenge charged up your butthole and you want to put it on film, have at it, man. Or woman, I don't know.
It's all about consent and things like that. I mean, safety, obviously. Because I think that is kind of the main thing. There's a lot of people that will argue against porn because of things like, maybe the way they depict women and things like that. But I feel like as long as it's consenting, everyone's being paid and properly compensated for their time and energy. I feel like there's not too much bad you can say about it. Because I mean, a porn scene for 2 hours, you probably make a good bit of money as opposed to sitting in an office for 8 hours. I mean,
oh man, yeah.
It's kind of hard to like argue that kind of stuff, but it is like this thing where people will say like, oh, it's being women. It's
Listen, I mean, sex work is like the oldest form of work, and I know that's said about prostitution all the time, but the same can be said for watching sex acts as well, pornography. Now, the way I view porn is you take it in lower doses, like you don't depend on that for
right.
Because then that gets into the debate of addiction, which we're not here to do. But like for me, it's like you're consensual. You're not hurting anybody. You understand what you're consenting to. It's all legal. It's all good.
Right.
You're not hurting anybody else in the process. And number one, both adults need to understand what it is they're consenting to.
Yeah.
And if there's even a question about it, then it doesn't need to happen.
Consenting adults. That is
yes.
That's the only way to really consume porn. Consenting adults. Now it's nothing shocking or new to say that porn is for the most part very controversial. Occasions of minors being involved have been accused. There's several stories you can find where even like recently, they've uncovered like people that were involved in mainstream porn were not the age that they claim to have been. Most famously, I can think of there was a gay porn actor. There's a movie about him too. They made a movie, has Christian Slater and James Franco in it. It's called King Cobra. But there was it's a good movie. There's this porn actor who was very popular in like the early 2000s, kind of like the gay porn like poster boy, I guess. And it came out, after he'd done like several hundred scenes that he was actually a minor. He was actually not 18, and he had faked his ID and everything. A ton of stuff like that. These porn actors, because I think in the early days there wasn't really that many restrictions. I think it was literally like you flash your ID, oh, you're 18, get in there, kind of thing. I'd hope now there's probably more stringent about it now. That's more of a mainstream thing. And I think that's a big part of it too, is it being mainstream. I think helps out a lot. Like the more you like I guess, villainize something and make it seem seedy, the seedier it's going to be.
One thing that I think the porn industry has done that has helped not only its community, but the community around it is the actors have to go in for like routine STD checks.
Yes.
Which that has helped so much. It's not something that a lot of people think about, but I mean, if you are sexually active, you should, and you're being sexually active with multiple people, you should have an STD check.
Yeah.
So the fact that like there's people there that are like, no, we need to make sure that they're doing this safe and they're doing this healthy for their bodies and their immune systems. That was very responsible. I give it that. It was very responsible of them.
Yeah, I think a lot of like the major porn companies have like been pretty strict on that. 'Cause I mean, obviously if you're like if one person slips up, that affects a whole community of people. 'Cause I mean, these people are coworkers, and in the grand scheme of things, despite what they're doing or what they're depicting they're doing on screen, they're coworkers. They're just on the job. So they have to be protected because, I mean, that person gets this and that goes to the next, job to do their work and they give it that. It's a whole thing. So, and I think that was a lot in the 80s. I think there was like a pretty big epidemic with that. So,
all I'm thinking of is, you worked with Craig. He's great, isn't he? Oh, yeah. It's awesome. We didn't need any lube. It was great. Yeah, you did awesome. Like, that's all that's going through my head right now.
Basically, I mean, that's what it is. It's like, it's like they're coworkers. Yeah, imagine they have like a holiday Christmas party, company party, company picnics, whole studio's going to the zoo for the summer, picnic, stuff like that.
I'm just, every time he says something, my face just goes into shock. Like, because like I'm not imagining them as normal people. I'm imagining them as people having sex. It's like,
porn stars, yeah.
Like,
but I mean, that's it too, is like kind of like normalizing that helps out a lot. Mm-hmm. Like people, normalizing porn can be taken for whatever you want. But I mean, allowing it to be mainstream helps out a lot. Because if you make something seedy, it's going to be seedy.
Yeah.
Because then you can have like doctors straight up like refusing to do tests on people because, you're a porn star. I'm not giving you an HIV test. But you really need to do that stuff. So I think here in the last few years with it becoming really mainstream has helped out that industry a lot. 'Cause you have more eyes on it too. You have more focus on it to, keep up things, to keep up, appearances. So I think that's helped out a lot. Now, there's also been things of reports of abuse. I read an article, actually, I was reading this, of, several porn stars who just, years ago were megastars and are now homeless or dead or missing because I mean it's such a turbulent industry. It's all look based and things like that. Like you're popular one day and next year you gain a little bit of weight. No one wants you on their sets.
Yeah,
so it's all gone. A lot of people aren't smart with their money because it happens so fast.
Yeah, it oh man. Yeah, it really kind of screeches echoes from like the modeling world.
Oh yeah,
because like back when I was into it. Now I haven't been in this world in
the modeling world.
Modeling world. Yeah, not pornographic world. I was never in porn, but I was in the modeling world. It was like close to 7 or 8 years ago now, and like you had your time was coming. Like at 20, I'm turning 27 this year. At 27, that was like you're done. Like all right, you're done. You get to go like from like 17, 18, most of the time 18, going all the way up to like 26. You were done. And like I said, like this has been years ago now, so I don't know what the world's like now. But yeah, that's what it was. So like I get that. Like get as many jobs as you can now, because in 10 years, you're not going to be able to do that.
Exactly. It's crazy. Like, I was reading about all these actors, like, just an article came about all these actresses that, you can see pictures of them on their Instagram from just, a few years ago at celebrity parties, with, the Kardashians or, rappers and all this, and at these big Hollywood events. And then a couple of years later, you just find out they were homeless and died on the street somewhere because it declines that quick. Now, one of the most... The ongoing eternal battle is always the war between the porn industry and various religious groups. That's always going to be the eternal struggle. I don't think there'll ever be any compromise there because it seems like one is indicative to the other. But one of the most furious opponents of the porn industry is the contingent known as the alt-right. It's not a stretch to pit these two groups against odds because clearly a common thread with the alt-right is their extreme religious standings. And porn is seen as blasphemous smut. In recent years, the true reasoning for this alt-right war on porn has come to light.
Oh.
On February 10th, 2018, New York Times columnist Ross Douthat.
I like Douthat better.
Douthat, yeah. Maybe there's no W in his name, so I pronounce his name, but we'll go Douthat.
Don't say Douthat.
Wrote an article calling for an all-out ban on pornography. Douthat argued that young people were being introduced to porn as a mistaken idea of how sex really is. This would shape their views of sexual behavior and create unhealthy behaviors. This assertion, for the most part, doesn't seem entirely unreasonable. What do you think about that? Like, you understand what he's saying here?
Yeah. It's like is he saying if you consume it too much or just at all?
I think what he's saying is like his thing was like, say you have like let's say like an 11-year-old, okay? Let's say young. You have an 11-year-old gets on gangbang.com and and they think that, oh, this is just what sex is.
Oh, I see the picture now.
And that creates this view in their mind of like sex is
this is what it is.
15 partners at once, and then that becomes their expectation for porn, and that's for sex, and that's what they then seek out. So, I mean, overall, it makes sense, but I do kind of think that most, even young kids, I feel like would probably understand that it's fantasy. I don't know. I mean, I feel like if like 11-year-old me saw that, I would know like this is something fantastical.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I get what he's saying.
Oh yeah,
go good.
One of my nephews is 11.
Okay.
So in my mind, I'd be like, yeah, like that's like you would know better, but also like, listen, buddy, I love you, but you're stupid. Like, I mean, like they just don't. I'm not going to explain this with justice, but like they just don't understand the rationale. But also, in partnering with that, I feel personally that that's the responsibility of the parent to be like, you need to understand that what you're watching here is a fantasy. Everything that you see on a screen, I don't care if it says reality, found footage, whatever, it's all a fantasy. What happens in real life is different. So I can see where that argument can be made, but at the end of the day, like I'm always going to fall back to, well, what is that parent doing?
Yeah, exactly. I can't say porn in general, but like my dad let me watch a lot of like pretty crazy stuff when I was a kid. I had like VHS of Species on my shelf when I was 5 or 6, and I watched Predator when I was very young by myself. Things like that, and like I was allowed to watch these things. My dad was always just very open with me that this is fake, this isn't real stuff. And I mean, I look back on some of the things I watched, and like I watched like some pretty gnarly ass horror and action movies where people are getting dismembered, and it didn't faze me because my dad had taken the due diligence to explain to me this stuff is fake and you can't actually do this or you shouldn't actually do this.
Yeah, exactly. So, which there's a lot of variables here. However, just a blanket statement. Shit, I don't know what the blanket statement would be.
I feel like it's an extreme scenario.
Yeah, I can.
Like some kid sees it, thinks, "Oh man, like I was just to strangle my partner in sex, or whatever, hardcore shit their fear of coming into is." But I feel like most people would understand it's a fantasy, or at the an early phase of when this is being conceived, would be able to understand that maybe this isn't like the exact way it's supposed to be.
Here's my problem here. I haven't watched enough porn to actually have this argument. I don't know the other side of this argument. I'm sorry. But No, like definitely, I agree with you there. I feel like they would know, like, okay, I can't like choke this person out. Like that's not responsible. That's not what two loving people would do.
Right. And I feel like too, there's a lot of media that displays what an actual healthy relationship is. A lot of mainstream stuff. Because porn, as mainstream as it is still pretty fringe. And I feel like there's still an overabundance of mainstream media that does depict what a healthy, consenting, male, female, male, female, relationship is.
Yeah, there's a lot.
That's not just it's not as depicted in pornography that there is would be a sense of relations, things like that with it. So, but I think what he's doing is like maybe an extreme. Maybe you have like someone who has a mental disorder pre-existing sees this stuff would be pretty crazy.
So Netflix has a really good movie. It's the word for the sex addict. I think it's nymphomania.
Nymphomania,
yeah, that's what it's called. It's a French movie, so you have to watch it in subtitles. But they have they do show like active sex happening. Like,
okay,
you're getting the penetration, but it's done on Netflix, so it's fine. But they have a really good depiction of like what a healthy relationship was and what a non-healthy relationship was, and they show sex with both of them. So like that was the first thing I thought of when you were like, well, in modern media they do show that, and I'm like, yeah, and there's actually a really good fucking example of both in one movie.
Have you ever seen you ever heard of a movie called Cyber Seduction?
No.
Me and Mike watched it. It's a Hallmark movie.
Of course you did.
It's a Lifetime movie. It's a Lifetime movie. It's called Cyber Seduction. It's like one of those like parent scare movies where this kid watches is at a party and sees a movie with some boobs on it, and that sends him down this spiral where he's stealing his mom's credit card and staying awake at night on porn sites and flunking out of school, and then at the end he jumps into he like drowns himself in a pool because the porn has such a grasp on him. It's one of those like scare movies.
Why did it have to be a pool?
He was a swimmer.
Because why did he have to die in a puddle of wetness?
Because he was addicted to porn.
I find the wetness very funny. I'm sorry.
But yeah, that was a movie. I'd love to find that movie to watch again, just because I think it'd be a fun movie night or something.
I'll find it. I found Rose Red for Ben. I will find this movie.
Rose Red's a lot easier to find than Cyber Seduction, a Lifetime movie.
It took me a week to find that movie. It took me a whole ass week.
I feel like Rose Red would be a lot easier to find than Cyber Seduction. You go and look for Cyber Seduction. You tell me if you find it.
All right, I'll find it. I'm just going to tell you when I find it.
Now, the next day after this article was produced, it began to circulate on Twitter. And obviously, it found ridicule, from people thinking it was laughable and assuming it was just another crazed anti-porn tirade. But one commenter had a different kind of criticism. And they said, these concerns are insignificant in comparison to the damage porn is doing to all of man. You need to break the mindset of protecting a precious few over the well-being of the masses. Now, this was a sentiment of several people who align themselves with the alt-right, particularly a man by the name of Mark Collett. Now, Mark Collett is a British neo-Nazi who has a pretty large online following where he uses his platform to promote his views on white supremacy and anti-Semitism. Collett is one of the founding proponents of the conspiracy leaking porn and, dramatic pause, Jewish people. That's the conspiracy. Jewish people run the porn industry.
Because they've always been known for being just little rascals.
According to crazed alt-right neo-Nazis, that's rule number 1 of why you should always check your sources. Always check your sources. If you see a conspiracy and you think, that might be interesting, make sure you find out who is perpetrating this theory, because more common than not, It's going to be a neo-Nazi.
It's a neo-Nazi. I don't know if it's always a neo-Nazi.
Not always, but shockingly, there's a shockingly high number of conspiracies that sound interesting until you find out who's actually pushing it. Happened with Project Bluebeam. I thought Project Bluebeam was going to be pretty cool and pretty fun, and then I find out, boom, neo-Nazi.
So you just keep finding all these neo-Nazi conspiracies.
That's why I'm saying I'm doing a nice, fun one next. Next I'm doing something nice and fun, and I don't talk about neo-Nazis or fear about being looped in with Kanye West somehow. I'm doing a nice fun one for my next one, but unfortunately for the porn conspiracy, we're talking porn Jews and neo-Nazis. So.
Oh my, porn Jews, don't do that. They've had enough happen to them. They don't need porn Jews happening to them.
Here's Colette's theory. Colette's theory is that since the 1970s, Jews have been heavily involved with the porn industry. Now, not because the porn industry is a highly lucrative one, and that I thought was like that would be an easy one to tie in with this ideology, because there's alt-right conspiracies oftentimes will propagate that the Jewish people are controlling the world's finances. Mm-hmm. So like when I first read that, I thought like, oh, they're going to say that's the reason why that porn is making so much money, because $15 billion a year, it's a lot of money. Yeah. But that's not it. Actually, it goes much deeper than that. So the Jewish involvement in porn is a means for them to control the Earth's most precious resource. You know what that is?
Pussy.
No. It's young white men. Now, I've been listening to a lot of like woke podcasts that are like, why are men being torn down? So like now hearing this, I'm like, well, this is a change from this morning. This is a change from this morning. None of your woke podcasts are talking about this.
They're not very woke.
Not enough. So the theory is that porn would be introduced to young white men at an early age. Talking adolescence. Now, the reason for this is so that they develop an addiction. Now, this would then cause them to be totally consumed, and so consumed by pornography, they would lose total interest in actual sex and procreation. They would no longer want to procreate. The goal here is to effectively neuter white males and doom the entire white race. A white supremacist's greatest fear.
Oh my God. So, my dearest love Ben did just tell me that I got the definition of woke wrong just there. So, like, stop yelling at me through the car speakers.
I was saying, what are you watching? What you listen to woke podcasts for?
I thought woke meant like what the actual reality is.
No.
No.
Not
what that means. No. It's misleading. Anyway, so I was educated right quick. Sorry about that. Anyway, I've heard this Matrix theory before.
This one.
Okay. When you talk about the Matrix, there's a lot of different theories. Yeah. But I've heard this theory before where like people are, or like there's a group of people that are like trying to like pseudo neuter like people and like keep men and women like apart from one another.
Yep.
And do that to like
to keep to halt procreation. Yeah.
To like decrease how many
to thin out the population. Yeah. Here toward the end, we'll talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about. I'll talk about some little kind of like minor conspiracy I found. I couldn't find too much info on, but
I'm very interested.
Now, well, hold on, because this gets a little scarier.
Oh?
Or more ridiculous, depending on which side of this insanity you occupy. If you think that the Jews are after the white race and using porn as a weapon. These young, white, porn-addicted males would then be driven to pursue darker outlets to get their thrills. They would no longer be satisfied with standard male-female porn. They would begin to dabble in gay and trans porn.
Oh, no.
And eventually, because this theory is created by white supremacists, the top tier worst of the worst, would be interracial porn.
Oh!
Featuring African American men and white women.
Oh, no.
That's Mark Collette and a bunch of his followers' greatest fear. Now, I did find an interesting statistic here on this, because it talks, this article that I read for this portion did talk about cucking porn. Are you familiar with that, Bailey?
Like what a cuck is?
Yes.
Let's make sure I know the correct definition.
Okay, let's make sure, because I don't want you like using the word cuck inappropriate or in
it's
the
the
wrong
guy
way.
that basically lets his girlfriend like have sex with another guy right in front of him, and it's just
basically,
like, no, it's fine.
Basically, yeah. Or it could be like a forced thing. So basically, what I found was there is this there's a subgenre of porn, it's cucking porn, and there is a subgenre of that where it basically is a white man forced to watch his white wife being in relations with a black man. Now, this sounds like a white supremacist's greatest fear. Well, shockingly enough, statistically, this is most popular with white supremacists.
Intimidation comes in many faces. Oh, and intimidation and fear.
Yeah. So this certain subgenre of porn is most popular with men who do align themselves with alt-right ideals. They are more this is the more popular porn for them, is the idea of a white man having to watch his white wife being in relations with a black man.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot to unpack there.
I don't know how to feel about that yet.
No. So this theory would effectively see a Jewish-led porn industry turning white men into porn-addicted zombies, unable to reproduce, thus making the white race the minority, so the Jews could control the world. That's the porn conspiracy. Now, as crazy as it sounds, this theory would be widely accepted by the alt-right because, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they would find some little tidbits they use to back this. In 2016, Israel, which is a prominently Jewish country, Israel passed a law totally blocking internet porn sites.
Oh wow!
A move the alt-right claims was because the Jewish people do not want this backfiring on their own people.
Uh-oh.
So they had to cut it off. They don't want their people getting affected by the evil porn plot. They don't want to come back on the Jews. So they made sure no Israelites are able to view pornography. Unless they have a VPN. If you have a VPN, you can read porn. Guess they didn't think of that
look
one.
at someone who works for like NordVPN or something, like let us know if Israel has like we see like US 50% of users, Israel 118% of users. Like, I don't think that's what's gonna happen, but that would be funny.
Well, this would be a great spot to put our NordVPN advertisement if we had them as a sponsor.
We had one.
Damn. Now, Mark Collette's theory is unfortunately nothing new. Hitler would also blame Jewish people for another sexually based ploy in his book Mein Kampf. He detailed how the Jewish people, using Jewish pimps and Jewish prostitutes, were responsible for the spread of syphilis and other STDs as a way to target his perfect Aryan race. So this right here is basically another form of that theory. They're just saying that this right here was another way for them to hamper the growth of the white race. What do you think of this so far, Bailey? What do you think? I mean, we're here at the end of it. What do you think of the porn conspiracy? What side of the fence do you lie on?
Oh, so many. I need to cut myself into pieces. Not really though. Not really. So first of all, just so all of you guys know, like I've been mildly uncomfortable this whole time. Just like,
As I knew you would.
And
As I knew you would.
Okay, like this is fine. Like this is actually very vanilla. Like Ty actually like toned this down way down the.
I tried. I wasn't gonna get here and like describe a gangbang to you or something on the pod.
We're talking about cum shots, Bailey. How do you feel about that?
See, that's you. That's you saying that, not me.
I know. It's, Anyway, I don't know. So, like, here's the thing. I'm very interested because our birth rates, like our national birth rates, are actually at an all-time low right now.
Right.
I don't know if they're as low as what it was during the Depression or lower.
Well, there's a lot of factors that go into that because I did kind of read up on that as well. Because that is, some people even, there are people that obviously are against pornography who aren't neo-Nazis. I'll say that. If just because you don't like porn doesn't mean you're a white supremacist.
Yeah, as it is with everything. Like just because you don't like one certain thing doesn't mean you belong to X category. Like, no, I hate the thought of categories unless like you are like very, very proud. Like I'll wear the T-shirt and everything. Yeah, like so.
There are people who are concerned that the increase in porn accessibility is causing the decline in birth rates. There are people that are concerned about that, and there are several things that people do kind of contribute to that. One would be independence. People are becoming a lot more independent. Young people kind of choosing to live their own lives rather than creating a legacy for a child or whatever. The opioid epidemic is also something that's kind of thrown in there as well. So there are things like that, the decline in the economy, not really a good economy to have a kid in, honestly, with inflation and stuff like that. The last thing, I can barely take care of myself and my dog. I don't want to take a fucking kid into this. And there's things like that. But, in with that, though, I'm sure the accessibility of porn does play into that.
Yeah.
So there are things like that do kind of line up where there's different things. There is things to be concerned about. Porn can create. Talking about that article from New York Times earlier. I don't think it's the extreme where someone might totally take if they stumble on some BDSM site, think that that's how regular porn is. Yeah. I don't know if that's going to be a common occurrence, but I could see it happening if maybe someone isn't properly developed mentally, or maybe has a pre-existing mental condition. I could see that maybe being the case. But there are things with porn. Porn it does have a desensitizing effect. I mean that's science. I mean you can look that up. That's something people that have porn addiction, they do become bored of sex because they have this accessible means to see whatever they want to see. Why would they spend the time to forge a relationship and fuck one person when they could see 17 people banging 18 people? It's like it's crazy.
No, and you're totally right too. And like I've heard that argument a lot where it's like it desensitizes. Like it's the same thing with like violence. If you can, kind of make that side by side argument, the more violence we saw, the more, the less sensitive we became to seeing violence and hearing of violent crimes. I'm actually glad you said BDSM specifically, because then I thought back to that 11-year-old kid. Well, what if that 11-year-old kid gets on a BDSM site and, that's like one of the first sexual things that they've ever consumed in their life. That's a fundamental age where they're starting to, their whole brain's starting to develop. So there's definitely an argument to be made there. However, my argument is always going to go back to, what is that parent doing? Is the parent talking to them about sex? And if you all parents need to talk to their kids about sex. I don't care. Everyone does. Because it's something they're going to do one day. You want them to be prepared and protected.
Yeah. I can remember vividly when I would say I was probably like in 7th grade. I was in 7th grade. There was this kid that came to our school who was like, he was a new kid. I remember him being there for like a very short amount of time. And I remember him even like telling like, it was kind of like a thing in the school that he got kicked out of his old school or whatever. And he had to come to our school. And I remember one time we were working, I got grouped up with him on a project at school, and we were like in like the computer lab. So like the computer lab was like these little cubes, and I got set with him. We had to do this project, and however he was able to do it. I remember him like bringing up bestiality porn on the computer. Mind you, I was like 7th grade, and this shocked me. Like I remember like being so. Like, it was up for a little bit. Teacher came and closed out. I only saw a little bit of it.
Oh, my God.
I remember it was like a horse and a girl. I remember that. And I remember that, like, fucked me up for a minute. Like, I remember I was so shocked. I went home. I told my dad about, like, a rapper. I was like, this kid, like, did this on the computer at school. And my dad, great dad, he was able to talk to me and stuff. Didn't affect me anyway. But I remember that being like, this kid was like, look at that shit as, like, a hobby. I remember really, I remember for the rest of the day, I was like, what the fuck was that? I was so shaken by this like image. Like I remember it was only up for a little bit, closing down, and that like really fucked me that whole day. I remember like the next day I was kind of like, I did not want to be like hanging around that kid. I told my teacher like, hey, I'm not working on projects. I had my dad wrote a note to the school basically saying like, hey, my son is not to be associated with this kid or whatever.
Good.
And I remember like shortly after he got taken to another school, so who knows what the fuck he was doing. Like he was in some weird shit, I'm sure, but yeah, so like again, like my dad was there to explain to me this shit was not normal and that was not something that is supposed to be, happening.
Your dad's the man.
Oh yeah, he was good dad. But yeah, it's crazy and like, but yeah, a kid seeing that kind of thing and not having someone to explain to them that's pretty fucked up and like it's not normal. I can see that really screwing with someone.
Yeah. Whenever it comes to kids, you're always going to have to look at the adult in the room or the adult that has been charged with taking care of them. You're always going to have to look to that person whenever it comes with kids. That's all I'm going to say on that, because then I'm going to start getting into, well, you shouldn't let government get a hold of your kids, and then we're going to be here even longer if I go down that road. So adults need to be in charge of their kids and what they consume. We're done. Tyler, move us on.
But yeah, that was the larger porn conspiracy. Was these white supremacists have found that they found a way to blame the Jews for porn. Now crazy enough, there's actually some pretty scary stuff I found on this. There was actually a man who shot up a synagogue a few years ago, and they found his manifesto where he explicitly, one of his main reasons for doing that was to, he believed that the Jews were behind the porn industry, and he was out to right that wrong, I guess. But there are stuff like that where you'll find in several anti-Semitic manifestos, people who've done some pretty heinous acts. They also subscribe to this ideology that the Jews are using porn to neuter, the white race.
Yeah, no,
crazy shit.
First of all, let's get this out. It's not the Jews' fault. It is not the Jewish people's fault. They've gone through a lot. It's not their fault. First of all, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Always. Do I think that the porn industry is being used to intentionally neuter specific white men? No, I do not. Why don't I believe that? Because there's a lot other stuff going on in the world right now that are being aimed towards white men that can neuter them far quicker. So no, I don't believe that. I want to know why people keep going after the Jewish people. Like, stop it!
It's an alt-right thing. It's rooted in Christianity. So a lot of the Jewish hate comes from the Bible. Christ was crucified by the Jewish people. So and a lot of these alt-right groups are extremely religious and extreme Christians. So a lot of that comes from that. So you have to they just draw these lines of Jewish people running banks and Jewish people running porn, and I lost my job because of the Jews. I mean, my truck don't start because of the Jews.
Oh gosh. Oh, geez, oh, Pete. Well, I'm pretty sure they're reading that same Bible that still says "Thou shalt not kill," and it doesn't say "except the Jews" underneath of it. Like, let's be real here.
The Jews put that in there.
The Jews put that.
If you know anything about Christian extremists, it's very pick and choose what you choose to follow. If it's something you don't like, that's the Jews.
That's the Jews. It's the same. I won't say we get that same argument, but these pagans I've heard a lot. Yeah. And they're not just talking about like witchcraft pagans. They're talking about like bad people in a collective and just saying pagans. But like
but that was the pure, unadulterated insanity that is the porn conspiracy. Now, in researching this, I have found a couple little mini conspiracies. I wanted to like find more information on some of this stuff, but it was all like buried in Reddit threads and stuff like that. And
oh gosh,
I was trying to focus on the one. Yeah, I was trying to focus on the main conspiracy I want to touch on. So, there is I know in the conspiracy iceberg. Which is great if you're ever finding videos on the conspiracy iceberg. It's a good like 10-hour long video to put on. I've tried to watch that in multi-parts, but there is on the conspiracy iceberg. There is the idea that that porn actors are succubi, and they are draining your energy as you're watching porn. So as you're watching porn, you're getting this rush of pleasure. They're actually draining that energy from you through the
that would make sense
through the computer. It's very. I want to find more info on that because I wanted to like dive into that more. Maybe one day I'll be able to dig a little deeper on that. But
we'll have to do like a series.
Oh, that'd be great. You want to do the porn conspiracy series?
I thought about the iceberg series. I didn't know we were doing the porn conspiracy.
The iceberg would be great. Iceberg would be a fun like series to do. We have to set aside some time for that. It's pretty big. Now the another one I found was kind of interesting because it did kind of fall into the Matrix thing of basically when you watch porn, you do your deed, you get a burst of endorphins.
Yeah.
Get a nice little rush, and that is actually used to keep you under control, keep you from viewing the actual world around you. You do your thing, get your little rush, and that keeps the veil over your eyes. So do you have another Matrix one?
No. Okay. Although that's really interesting. That's really interesting. I did have this video or this Netflix doc that I watched a few years ago called Cam Girl. I don't know if it's still up, but
I think I watched that recently. I think I watched that a long ago.
It was super good. I remember this being very good, and it made me look at the porn industry a little bit different. Because they and this was like before OnlyFans and everything came out. But they did this documentary called Cam Girl, and they followed I think 3 or 4 cam girls around. Like, and cam girls are girls that do live feeds. And they'll undress, they'll tease, it's a pornographic live feed. And then like if you pay a certain amount, and I'm probably not doing this a whole lot of justice, by the way, because it's been a few years since I've watched it, and I'm not all that well versed in the cam girl world. If you pay enough, you can go to like private rooms or whatever, or like collect tokens or what. I don't know. Imagine I'm getting all this right, and someone's like, Bailey knows. I really don't. I don't know. But yeah, and like, so that's kind of what this reminded me of, because like I was thinking of this documentary as we were watching it, and like they're like, this is hard work, and I mean, yeah, it's really interesting to. I don't know. I just kept thinking about that documentary a lot because that's like my only insight into the porn world that I have, that like there are real people behind this. But I mean, I got, even in the documentary, like there's no like hidden agenda or anything that was in there that I noticed when I watched it. It just seemed like people were out there wanting to make money.
That's what I've always seemed like to me. Just it's an easy way to make a buck. I mean, if that's your thing, do it. I mean, if you have the confidence to do it, kudos to you. I'd do it. I just don't have the confidence for it, but that's only keep me. But hell, it's a good way to make some money. I know OnlyFanners, here living in Columbus. There's several OnlyFanners I know who make bank. Like that is their income. Mm-hmm. It's wild. People are able to do that, and kudos to you. But Yeah, so I don't know if any of them are. I'll have to see if any of them are aligned with the Jews.
You'll have to ask and be like, who's your boss?
Yeah, so what's your goal here?
Yeah.
But
who are you working? Are you working
who
for?
you working for? But yeah, unadulterated insanity is the porn conspiracy that these alt-right crazies have come up with, that the Jews are behind everything, and of course they're behind porn.
This was
I keep finding
ride.
things that the alt-right are behind. I just want to do a nice easy one where I don't have to talk about anything controversial, but of course, you're doing a porn conspiracy. I end up having to talk about neo-Nazis. So the next one I do,
ones are the fun ones, because then like you guys don't get to see it, but Ty gets to watch me look around the room and start squirm and try not to say the wrong thing.
Wildly uncomfortable.
Wildly uncomfortable. No, that was good. That was a wild ride. Oh my god. That was
starts back. It's very interesting to like read about
cigarette after that.
It's very interesting to read the history of porn. It's a fascinating industry. That's God. It's so like it's ancient. It's ancient. Like the pornography can be traced back, thousands of years. It's wild. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I don't have any more to say on it. I think we covered a lot. This was a really good discussion on porn in general.
It was. I hope we educated some people. I was educated. I learned what woke actually means.
Yeah, you learned.
If you don't know what woke meant, you learned that today too. all the like 9-year-olds who haven't discovered that word yet. Well, I hope the 9-year-olds aren't listening to a podcast. Yeah, don't
have some discretion. I'm wondering how badly this video is going to do on YouTube. I'm pretty sure this is going to get obliterated by the algorithm on YouTube.
If we get a strike on YouTube for this one.
Oh, I wouldn't be shocked. Man.
We can't post it if we're going to get a strike on YouTube, because then all Cult Talk Net gets a strike.
We'll see.
Ty.
It's not me.
I'm not that ballsy. I'm not that ballsy.
It'll be fine. We don't show.
I think it'll be all right. Yeah. We have the fans behind us. We got this.
That'll keep them off of us. But there we have it, guys. The porn conspiracy. Bailey, what'd you think in all about the porn conspiracy? I think I asked you this earlier, but I don't know if I got
that was wild.
Question. Yeah.
That was wild. I'm very entertained. I'm very interested in this. This is definitely, the porn world is not a world that I'm familiar with in the slightest. So this is very, very interesting. And like I said, I've been listening to some Matrixy podcast talking about like the sort of this like neutering of white men and whatnot, and like birth rates declining and whatnot. And they do talk about porn and how porn is, can be seen as a bad thing. Like there's some content creators that are like, absolutely, like don't watch porn. And like, right. I look at those creators and I'm like, why? So this definitely like now adds to that conversation for me. Like, of that nature. As far as Jewish people trying to neuter white men so that they can not have babies anymore and just be porn addicted zombies, I don't think that's true, but it's wildly entertaining.
Wildly entertaining. That is the most dangerous thing about all these fucking alt-right conspiracies, is they're insane. Mm-hmm. They're ridiculous, but goddamn is entertaining to see how these fucking people jump through hoops to make these connections. It's wild. It's that's the most dangerous thing about this stuff. Is how it's nuts.
They're just Olympic jumpers by this point.
They are. They're just diving for, how can we blame the Jews for something? We gotta blame them for anything. It's ridiculous. This was the wildest one I've read, though. I did not expect it to go this route, because I honestly was like looking for the succubus stuff. I was like trying to find stuff on that, but I could not find enough on that. The stuff from the conspiracy iceberg, but I just couldn't find enough to fill out my time. So maybe I'll come back to that maybe sometime. But yeah, this right here was, I was able to find it as insane. I knew I had to bring it.
Nice. It was a good one. It was a wild ride. I definitely had no idea where you were coming in from. Ha ha. I need to go to bed.
Now on the next episode, we're talking, Bailey's in the driver's seat on this one, and if you guys enjoyed File 010 Dimensions, you will definitely enjoy File 012 Parallel Universes, because it's Bailey's follow-up.
Yes. Parallel universes. We talked a little bit about it in Dimensions. If you haven't listened to that yet, please go back and listen to it, along with Bluebeam that we mentioned earlier. Both are fantastic. I went on a wild ride with Bluebeam as well. That's the one Ty presents, and you have to go watch it. Satellite Jesus. Everyone's controlling the world. It's great. But yeah, we're going to be talking about parallel universes. We're going to be talking about the ins and outs of it. And then it's going to be followed up by another story or another conspiracy that Ty will be presenting. And then after that, we're going to be... We don't know yet. We don't know.
I got to find a nice light one to do.
Nice fuzzy one.
Yeah.
And then we're going to, round out this nice little trilogy with a Dimensions and Parallel Universe Encounters episode. I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. I need to start research on that one.
Oh, I'm so excited.
But yeah, thank you guys for listening. And let us know your thoughts on porn in the comments. And go ahead and send Bailey over your favorite link to your favorite porn so she can check it out for research.
You can keep that to yourself. There are just some things that we don't need to share.
Don't be a creep and send unsolicited links.
Don't do that.
But no, we have had a good time here talking about porn. I was very interested to see how uncomfortable I can make Bailey during this episode, and I think she held up pretty well. You held up pretty good.
I did better than you thought.
Yeah,
you were a lot more tamed than I thought you were going to be. So
I don't know what was expected. I don't know if you expect me to come in with all the... I don't know what I was expecting. But it's a conspiracy podcast. We're not talking about anything too raunchy. If you guys want to hear more of Cult Talk Conspiracy, we're here every other Tuesday. If you guys like lore, like deep-rooted deep dives, you can follow Cult of Lore. That's our other show, and that comes out the first Thursday and the third Thursday of every month. And you can find that on pod feeds, wherever you find Cult Talk Conspiracy. And they do a very cool video format on youtube.com/culttalknet, and they work really hard on that. So check that out. It's a full-length video they put out, and it's really good. Cult of Campbell, that is our Bruce Campbell theme podcast. You can find that on Mondays, everywhere you find your favorite podcast. I believe we're taking a hiatus on that, which you guys can check out an episode where we explain that. But yeah, you can find that on all your favorite pod feeds. And then once again, youtube.com/culttalknet. And we're working hard on getting Cult of Russell going. I don't know when that'll be, but Cult of Russell is in the works. You guys can hear our Christmas special we released on Christmas Day right here on Cult Talk Conspiracy's feed, as well as all the feeds, Cult of Lore, Cult of Campbell, and youtube.com/culttalknet. Find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all the platforms. Search at Cult Talk Net and you'll find us. I made it very simple for everyone to find us. You can't miss us at Cult Talk Net across the board. I think that pretty much sums it up, Bailey. I mean, do you have anything else to add? Or
we're not on Pornhub.
Not on Pornhub yet. Yet.
No, that's going to give them a false impression.
Well, we'll not be there, but we might have a show on there sometime. Cult Talk Net might put a show up on there at some point.
Oh.
It's an untapped market.
It is an untapped market. She says as she quivers. Okay, we're leaving. We have stuff. I need to go.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to Cult Talk Conspiracy, the Porn Conspiracy. We'll be back. File 012 here in 2 weeks for Parallel Universes, right? Parallel Universes?
Parallel Universes.
Parallel Universes, and that's Bailey on that one. So until next time, I've been Ty.
I've been Bailey.
Question.
Everything.